Hi everyone, it's Shelby at A Little Literary Love. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about doing my May mid-month wrap-up. So we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in the first half of May. So let's get into it. So I'm counting the first half of May will be like May 1st through May 15th. And like I said, we'll just kind of be running through all the books that I read during that time. I think I read about 10 books. Yeah, so we're just going to go in order that I read these books. So we'll start with, I am continuing on with my journey through Lorraine Heath's backlist. I read Love with a Scandalous Lord. This is the third book in the Daughters of Fortune series. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I think I've given most of the books in this series 3 stars. This whole series, like, it's not a bad series. It's okay, but it hasn't really, like, wowed me. This is about this girl and her family end up going to England because her stepfather is English, I think, but he was like a bastard child. Anyway, so his dad is like on his deathbed. He's like really sick and he's like about to die, and his dad like wants to see him before he dies. So the whole family gets together, goes to England to kind of see this family, but the guy's wife, not the main character, it's kind of complicated. The dad who's dying, his wife doesn't like him because it obviously represents that he cheated on her during their marriage and doesn't like this guy, even though he's a really good guy. So the main character, she's always like admired England and like the traditions and has always wanted to go there and have like a debut and try to find like a proper English like husband, is like she just wants that. And she kind of has a thing for her stepdad's brother, so I guess that would be her like step uncle, sort of. They kind of have a thing and it's their romance. So like I said, this one was okay. There was nothing really wrong with it. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't anything that just kind of like blew me out of the water. Next one that I finished, I read most of this book actually in April, at least half of this in April, but I finally finished it in May. It's gonna be Strange the Dreamer, and this one I ended up giving 5 stars to. I loved this book so much. So this is about this guy named Laszlo Strange, and he is an orphan. He at first was at like a monastery like with monks, and then he ended up being at like this library, and he loves the library. He loves stories. It says he has like his nose got broken because a book like fell off of a bookshelf and like hit him in the face and he broke his nose. But anyway, so he is obsessed with this lost city. It's called the Lost City of Weep. It didn't used to be called Weep, but everybody calls it that now because at some point there was like this certain time where nobody, like, it just vanished, like the name from everybody's mind, like nobody remembers what it used to be called. So they now just call it Weep. And they used to get like, there were stories about people coming from this city and how amazing it used to be, and then it just kind of like vanished and nobody ever comes there so he is obsessed with this city, and there ends up being, finally there actually is this group of soldiers that come from Weep, and they're looking for a bunch of people to come back to their city, and they won't really tell anything like why they need all these people, but Laszlo ends up getting to go along. He doesn't really have any like skills that they're looking for, but he impresses like the like the commander, like the head guy of these soldiers, kind of takes a liking to Laszlo and ends up, you know, saying like, hey, I can be like your secretary or something, just please, like, this is like my life ambition to go to the city. So he ends up coming along, and there is a whole lot of other like backstory and other things involved, and there ends up being this Sarai, I think is how you say her name, is another like main character of this story, and she's a girl who's blue, literally and metaphorically. But I don't really want to say too much more if you haven't read this book, just because like it's so much fun just like finding things out about it. I love this so much. I love Laszlo. He's just like, oh, he's such a sweetheart, and I just want to like hold him forever. I love him. He just holds a special place in my heart because he's such a dreamer, and he's such a bookworm, and he's like perfect. And I could go on and on and on about him. And this then ended on like a huge like cliffhanger sort of, but a big thing happened at the end of this book, and I need to read the next one. I don't know when I'm going to be able to. I don't think I have enough time to read it in the latter half of May, but I might try if I can, because I really want to find out what happens. But this was so good. I loved it so much. Then I read Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. This is the second book, and I don't remember what the series is called. I didn't write it down. But the first one in this series is Fix Her Up, and they're all like all the names are spin-offs of like HGTV kind of like shows. But this is a marriage in trouble romance, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. I like this so much more than I thought I was going to like this, because marriage in trouble isn't really like a trope that I go for, but I really appreciated it in this one. And I know a lot of people don't really care for this book because they don't like the hero in this book. But anyway, so this is about Rosie and Dominic, and they've been married for a while, and their marriage is kind of on the rocks. They don't really talk to each other. They just kind of like, they still have a lot of like sexual tension between them. So like every week they still like get together and like have sex, but that's pretty much the gist of their relationship. They don't ever talk to each other, and they don't really like support each other too much. So finally Rosie has just like had enough of this, and she decides that she's gonna leave Dominic, and so she just comes home after a really bad day at work and is like, I'm leaving you, I'm gonna go stay with my friend, and we're gonna get a divorce because I just don't want to be in this marriage anymore. Which that kind of blindsides Dominic, for in his mind he thought their marriage was going great. He didn't really see any problems with it, and he's just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So then he wants to try to win Rosie back so that they can stay married, because he still loves her and wants to be married to her. So there's a lot of like reviews about why people don't really like Dominic, and I can understand why, but at the same time I appreciate the author putting him having this type of character in this story, because he's very like alpha. He has some toxic masculinity like elements to his character, but at the same time I didn't mind those as much, because I feel like we still need to have those characters in books, even though, you know, we're trying to get as a society, you know, saying that that's bad and we need to get away from it. But he sees himself as like the breadwinner of the relationship. His whole like mindset is that he needs to do everything he can to provide for Rosie, to protect her, which isn't a bad thing. I just think he goes about it in the wrong way. And I can't really blame his character for having that, because that's just how he was raised, to have that type of mindset that, you know, his father, you know, kind of taught him. He saw his father as being like, he, you know, provided for his family and whatnot. So that, I don't know. I appreciated that about his character, because then I also liked, they do end up going to like marriage counseling, and he kind of realizes some things that he was doing, and he tries to change some things that Rosie wants to have a better relationship with Rosie. So I also appreciate that aspect. This also delves into like the love languages, which I liked, that Rosie wants and like shows her love through like words, whereas Dominic shows and wants to receive love in the form of like acts of like doing things. So like Dominic would you know, start the car for Rosie and do all these little like things here and there, or he ended up like paying the security guard a little bit extra money every week at the job that Rosie has, to make sure that she's safe when she leaves the building and goes to her car and gets home safe. Just all these little acts that he does to try to show how much he cares for Rosie and how much he loves her, which I think is really cute. Whereas, like I said, Rosie wants words. She wants to talk to Dominic. So a big thing about this, their relationship, is that would have been fine if they had communication. If they would have just talked to each other and kind of said, hey, I'm not happy. This is what would make me happy. You know, this is what we need to change to make me satisfied in our relationship. So, you know, take that into consideration. But I did really enjoy this book. They did work through their problems, and it has a really good happy ending. So I'm excited to read the next one in this series. I like this one. I didn't like it as much as Fixer Up. Fixer Up was like 5-star. It was so good. But I did really like this one. Okay, so the next book that I read was Feral King by Sorcha Black and Sparrow Becket. I didn't really like this one. I gave this one 2.5 stars. This, I don't even know how to describe this one. So this is about this girl. Her name's Minnow, and she gets hired to be kind of like a babysitter, basically, for this reclusive man, and he's like really mean to like everybody, and they end up kind of getting into like a dominant submissive relationship, which I don't mind BDSM in my books, and this one was fine. It went more into like sadism and masochism aspect of BDSM, because Minnow is, I think she's a sadist. I get them mixed up, but she likes pain, and she wants the dominant in her relationship to hurt her. And then the guy, his name is Severin, is the opposite. I think is masochist. I could be wrong mixing those up, but he gets off on hurting people. So if that, you know, puts up some red flags and turns you off, you know, for me, I'm okay with this dynamic if it's all consensual, which in this it is. My whole problem with this book is that Severin he's a virgin hero. He has never been in a relationship of this kind. He's had these urges, but he thought they were bad and wrong, and he's never had anybody around that he could like act out these things on. So my problem with that is that since he's never been in this type of relationship, I don't think it's okay for him to just dive in without having like proper training with some other dominant, because there are some parts where he like really hurts her, which they did end up having like a safe word, and she never says her safe word, but at the same time I'm like, I just don't know that he knows how much pain she can actually handle if she's just like that she likes pain and wants a lot of it. You know, since he's the dominant, he should be able to like be like, oh no, that's too much pain for you, I need to back off. But he doesn't know that because he's never been in a type of situation like that before. So that was my whole big issue with it. And then I just didn't really care for like the romance between them. It was just not very believable. I don't know. This is like the first book in I think it's duology. I'm probably not going to read the next one. I think it turns into like a male-F or MMF kind of story with like his friend like joining in. They had some like kind of scenes with that going on in this one, but I think it delves more into that in the next one. I don't know. It wasn't really for me. I just didn't really care for it. I read was Neanderthal Seeks Human by Reid. This is the first book in her Knitting in the City series. This is another one I didn't really care for. I only gave this 2 stars. I listened to this on audiobook, so I don't know if this may have played a role into why I didn't really like it. The story was kind of, I don't know. It's about this girl and she like I think she gets fired or like let go from her job, and on the way out of the building she's like escorted by this like security guard guy, and then she ends up getting a job at this other place where the security guard guy is, but it turns out he's actually like the owner of this other company, but she doesn't realize that. I don't know. I think this is supposed to be like a romantic comedy. I didn't really find this book to be funny, like at all. I did not laugh a single time during this book. I didn't really care for the relationship. I didn't like the main heroine character. I thought she would like, she's one of those where she was like very intelligent, but then like street smart wise, like she's very dumb. Like it was really obvious that the guy was her boss. Like I knew that from the get-go that he was her boss, and she was just like completely clueless. But anyway, then it ends up being like a romance between her and that guy who then ends up being her boss. And then she's like, when she finds out, she's like, oh, well, I can't date, you know, my boss. That's not okay, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I just didn't really care for this. And then also, since it's a series, the Knitting in the City series, the knitting bit is about like, she's a part of this like friend group and they all like knit. And I wanted a little bit more of that in the book. It was like only in there just a little bit. I don't know, I just felt like since you're gonna make your series based off this, I wanted more with like some of the other people in the group, or to have more involvement with them. There's really only one person from the knitting group that is involved with this book, and that's only because that's the main heroine's like roommate. I don't know, I did not care for this, and so I definitely will not be reading the rest of the books in this series. And this is like my second Reid book, and I didn't really care for the other one that I read. It was something in her like beards series, these guys with like beards, and that one I was kind of like on too. So I don't know if I'm gonna read any more Reid books because I'm just not really caring for them so far. And then I read Secrets of a Summer Night by Kleypas. This is the first book. Well, there's like one that's like kinda the first book. On Goodreads it says it's 0.5 that I read last month, but this is #1 in the Wallflower series. So I'm wanting to read this series, and then the Hathaway series I think is the one after this, and then the Ravenel series, because her new book is coming out in the summer. So I'm wanting to try to read the whole like series so I can kind of like know what's going on. So I read this one, and here's the pretty step back of it. So this is about, as you can kind of guess from like the series title, The Wallflowers, this is about this girl. Her name is Annabelle. Yes, Annabelle, and she's a wallflower, and she's at like this dance or party or something, and she notices that there's like other like girls like her wallflowers. So she decides that she's gonna get them together. She starts talking with them. They become good friends, And they decide that they're going to help each other out in trying to find husbands. So Annabelle is the one that they're starting with, trying to help her find a husband. But the only man that is interested in her and wants her as his wife is this guy named Simon, who didn't actually grow up in like the in the aristocracy. He got his money and his wealth, you know, by doing different like businessy type stuff. He didn't like inherit his wealth. So he's like new money. So a lot of people don't really care for him, and Annabelle doesn't really like him, mostly because she thinks that he's a scoundrel, that he's kind of, that he wouldn't want her as his wife, that he would only want her as like a mistress, and that's why she doesn't like him, even though when you get his perspective, he like really likes her and would want her as his wife. So it's just a big like misunderstanding. I gave this 3 stars. I thought this was really cute. I thought when they do finally develop a romance, I thought it was pretty cute. I mostly like the friend group in this one. I don't know, something about historical romances, I just really like the friend group. So I'm really excited. I thought this was a good like startup to it, but I'm really more excited for like some of the other characters and their like romances in the other books. So I'll probably continue this. Maybe I'll continue this. If I have time, I'm going to try to continue this series this month. Otherwise, I'll probably get more to it next month. We'll see. Then I read Once a Myth, which by Pepper Winters, which is the first book in her Goddess Isle series. I did not like this book at all. I gave this 2 stars. The only reason I didn't give it 1 star is because I thought Pepper Winters' writing was really good. I really like meshed well with like her writing style. So I did like that part of it, but the overall content I did not like of this book. So this is about this girl, Eleanor, and right off the bat, she is with these sex traffickers. She gets kidnapped and she's with them, and then she gets sold and like flown to this island, and she meets Sullivan, who is the owner of this island, and he has bought her because the whole like Goddess Isles, he runs this company basically where men can, you know, pay for sex with one of his goddesses. So I did not like this because this featured, to me, this was pretty blatantly non-consensual sex. This is a dark romance, so that does tend to happen in some dark romances, although I tend to prefer my dark romances to have dubious consent in their books, to where I can kind of be like, that's consensual, you know, because I really like consensual relationships, consensual sex. That's just me. I don't really like non-consensual sex, and this features that, even though I feel like some of the writing, like I could see people arguing that it was dubious, but I consider it not, because when she's like wanting to have sex with him, she's been drugged, and he forcibly drugged her. It was against her will that she was drugged, and he developed this drug that like makes you like extra horny and really want to have sex with people. So he forcibly gave her this drug, and then after that, then she's like really in the mood and wants to have sex with him. So I don't consider that consensual because she's under the influence. Then I didn't like this. I could see the author was trying to put some like breadcrumbs to redeem the hero's like personality and his character by making him a vegetarian and an animal lover. And the whole reason why he's doing this, like he owns like a pharmaceutical company that he changed and made it to where it's like cruelty free and blah blah blah, and he's doing this because he's mad at humanity for causing and doing all this harm to animals. So he's like, the human race isn't above animals, so I'm going to, you know, take women and have them be slaves and blah blah blah. I don't know. I just did not care for it. And I don't really plan on reading the rest of the books in this series because I feel like if I do, the author is going to try to make me, like, it's a romance. So obviously it's going to end up being where Eleanor and Sullivan fall in love with each other. And they're going to have like a happily ever after kind of thing, which I don't really want. I don't want to see how the author tries to redeem him in my eyes. I'm just gonna stick with this and be like, he's a asshole, and I'm done. I might try to read some other type of Pepper Winters book in the future, just because, like I said, her writing style I really liked. It like meshed well with me, but this just wasn't the book for me. Then I read After Midnight by Teresa Medeiros. Not 100% sure how you say this. And then this one has a step back as well. This I read for the Rake Appreciation Society. This is their book club pick for May, which then I completely forgot to join the live show for this. I think it was like on a Thursday night, and I was really tired from work that day, and I totally just like fell asleep and completely missed the live show for this. But anyway, I gave this 3.5 stars. This is pretty good. This is a paranormal historical romance. So this is about Caroline? Yes, Caroline. And she ends up going with her aunt and younger sister to this soiree, like get together kind of thing that her other younger sister's suitor is throwing. So they go there to kind of check him out. His name's Adrian. Mostly they want to try to see because there's rumors that he is a vampire. So they want to meet him and see what he's all about. And then they end up doing this plan kind of thing. He like ends up inviting them back to one of his like estates, places that he owns, castle, something or other. And they go there with him and they find some more things out. Well, Caroline finds some more things out, trying to see, she's mostly just trying to see if he's a good guy for her sister to marry. He hasn't actually like proposed marriage to her sister. But anyway, ends up being the suitor to her sister, and Caroline end up forming their own romance. They ended up falling in love, which was really cute. And there are some like twists to it on the vampire like aspect. Like I said, I give this 3.5 stars. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it while I read it. There were some, like, looking back, some little like plot holes here and there. There were some things that I think the author could have done a little bit better, but overall it was pretty good. The next book that I read was Malice by Coralee June. This like just recently released. This is a mafia romance, and this ends up being a reverse harem romance. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it while I was reading it. It was kind of unexpected going into it, just from like the blurb synopsis on Goodreads. I was honestly expecting the main character to be a guy, because it talks about how the main character is best friends with a mafia princess, and there's a bunch of rules that they can't ask things about their, you know, her life. They can only meet like 1 day a week, and like a bunch of things like have to be secret about the best friend. And for some reason when I was reading that, I just thought that it was a guy, and that then maybe it was going to be like a friends to lovers kind of story, that then the guy was gonna, you know, fall in love with the best friend. But that is not what this is at all. The best friend is a girl. Her name's Juliet. And she's been best friends with Vicky, who is the mafia princess, for like 3 years now. Sorry, I keep itching my nose. It's so itchy. And then one night, Juliet ends up getting involved with the mafia life because her older brothers come, and her oldest brother, who is like the main guy of this like mafia mob, thinks that she is a spy for their enemy, and things happen. I don't really want to say like too much of what happens, because I just think it's mostly best to just like go in without knowing a ton. Yeah, so, and like I said, there's a reverse harem. She ends up becoming involved with all of her friends' older brothers. Yeah, I enjoyed this. I read this in like a day. I just devoured this. Looking back on it, I think there are like some things that the author could have done a little bit better. It didn't have too much with the mafia part involved. Not as much as some of the other mafia romances that I've read. There are a bunch of trigger warnings for this book. This is a dark romance, very, very dark romance. There is murder, very gruesome murder. Let's see here, what else is there? Oh, there's missing parents. So Juliet's mom has gone missing like several years ago, so she's kind of like still dealing with the trauma from that. There is past abuse and trauma for one of the other characters. There's sexual assault, not rape, but still assault nonetheless. So there's a lot of things that happen in this book. So just be warned. But otherwise, I still like really like this book. I really enjoy. I've read some other Coralee June books, and they're not all of them are like 5-star reads, but they're pretty solidly like 4 stars. They're pretty good. I'll probably continue reading her books. Okay, and then the last book that I read for the first part of May is going to be The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. I gave this 4 stars. Again, I really enjoyed this book. This is about Lena, and she is a wedding planner, and she has the opportunity to get a job at this like prestigious like hotel. I think it might be a hotel chain, maybe, to be their like wedding concierge, sort of. They're wanting to basically be like, this hotel is wanting to be like the place to have weddings at. Like if you're wanting a wedding at a hotel, you're going to choose this hotel. So she has the opportunity to be this person. She's kind of going through this extensive like interview kind of process, but during that process she has to work with this like marketing person, and that person ends up being her ex-fiance's brother. So then like the prologue of this book, it's her getting married to this guy, and on their wedding day she's like dressed up in her gown. The best man, who is her fiance's like brother, comes in and is like, hey, he left, he doesn't want to marry you. And she kind of finds out that it's partly because of something that he said. So this is an enemies to lovers romance. She obviously does not like this guy because he kind of caused her almost marriage to not happen. But she decides like she's gonna be professional and work with him because this is like the job of a lifetime. Like it's such a good opportunity. She's gonna kind of put her feelings aside and not let it get to her so that she can get this job. So, you know, things happen. They start to get to know each other a little bit more. They work really well together and they just develop a romance. And I really like this. I appreciated, so this is the main character has both African American and like Latina, I'm not really sure what's the proper Latin American heritage. So I appreciated seeing like that culture represented in this book, but then also she is a very like emotional person, but she tries to hide that away at her work. So she comes off as kind of like standoffish because she isn't emotional in public, because she has had some things happen where she's been like too emotional and called like a crybaby and all these things in her past. So she doesn't want to have that ever happen. Like she wants to come off as being professional, which is really harder for her, you know, being a woman, and especially a woman of color, that she can't, like, she'll just get written off if she shows any kind of emotion in the workplace for what she's trying to do. So I appreciated that aspect of this book. And I just really enjoyed the romance. Like I said, I gave this 4 stars, so this is really enjoyable. And I really want to read some more Mia Sosa books to kind of see what other type of romances she has and see if I like them as much as I like this one. There we go. So those were all of the books that I read in the first half of May. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more videos. If you are curious to see what else I read in the rest of May, stay tuned to the end of the month where I will do my end of the month May wrap up. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a great day and I'll see you later. Bye guys.